Those state numbers.
Morning.
Morning, Deb.
I don't know if I'm, is my mic on?
Yep. Deb, you can hear us, can't you?
I can hear you.
Morning, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, guys. Hey, is Ryan there?
Yes.
Ryan, say, I got hearing aids the other day and I got it paired to my phone, so that's pretty cool. When I'm talking on the phone, I can actually hear people because it comes in my directly to my ear. But when I was trying to do this with the iPad and I go to Bluetooth, it just keeps going round and round and round and round. It never finds any devices. How do I get it to find a device?
You might need to repair it, Steve, or put it into pairing mode to get it onto your iPad. So you might need to disconnect it from your iPhone.
Oh, I don't dare do that.
Yep. So because it's already paired to your iPhone, your iPad can't connect to it at the same time. Otherwise, it wouldn't know which device to send
Oh,
audio through. So,
I got you. I got you.
yep,
Okay. Thank you.
no problem.
Dave,
Yes.
was the meeting information sent to Joe Newton?
Yep, he's on the call.
Okay, very good, just checking.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
be? When is a good time for me to stop in and sign?
Are you able to do it this afternoon, Steve?
I could, yes. I
Okay,
think,
I
I
am
think I
working
have a
on,
meeting. When is that meeting? 1 o'clock, David?
Yep, and there's one at 1 o'clock and one at 3 o'clock, and they're repeats, so you can choose whichever one is most convenient.
Yep.
And good morning, Joe. Do you want to test your audio just to be sure we've got you?
I can test it only if you really want to hear me.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Steve, is it possible for you to stop in this afternoon, though?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Depending on when we get done, maybe before the 1 o'clock meeting.
Okay, yep, I am working remotely, but Jessica will have everything ready.
Okay.
It'll be in the conference room waiting for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. I've got 10 o'clock. So this meeting will be in person and via WebEx, video, phone conference, and streamed live on the internet. Not more than 2 county commissioners will be present in the meeting room. Public may join the meeting via WebEx in person at the meeting room or watch the live stream. If joining the meeting in person, the total number of persons, including commissioners, cannot exceed 10, and social distancing of at least 6 feet will be in effect. The governor of the state of Minnesota has issued Executive Order 20-01, declaring a peacetime emergency and coordinating Minnesota's strategy to protect Minnesotans from COVID-19. On March 24th, 2020, the Pine County Board of Commissioners declared a local emergency for Pine County. Based on these conditions, the chair of the Pine County Board of Commissioners has determined that the requirements of Minnesota Statute 13D.021 Subdivision 1 have been met, and it is not practical or prudent for all the members of the county board to meet in person. The public is invited to join the meeting in person or remotely. We will call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Public forum.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we do that, can we just verify we have a telephone call-in user? Is that Commissioner Steve Chafee?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have any public in the room, David?
There is no public in the meeting room.
I don't see, is there anybody that's on the phone in or video that would like to say something in public forum? I do not see anybody or hear anybody, so we'll move on to the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, this is Dave Menke. We have two corrections. One is for regular agenda item number 5, the jail camera system, and the correct dollar amount is $237,125. And that is a $5,260 increase to include some switches in the project. And then the other correction is on the November 3rd minutes, where we misspelled Correction Officer Zachary Carter's name, and the correct spelling of the name is Zackrie. And so we wanted to correct that in the minutes.
Thank you. I wouldn't have caught that. So any other additions or corrections to the agenda by anybody? Not, we'll look for approval.
Moore will move the agenda with the additions or corrections.
Ludwig will second.
Thank you. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickret.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. Approve the minutes of the November 3rd, 2020 County Board minutes and summary for publication.
Ludwig will move.
McGraw second.
Chafee, second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Mickret. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
Mickret.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Thank you.
So thank you. We'll move on to the minutes of boards, reports, and correspondence of the Pine County Zoning Board of September 24th, Pine County Housing Redevelopment Authority of September 23rd, Pine County Chemical Health Coalition of October 12th, and Pine County Chemical Health Coalition November 9th. We're looking for a motion for approval on that.
McGraw will move.
Chafee, second.
Motion by Mickret, second by Chafee to approve those reports. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickret.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. You've had that in front of you for a few days, so anybody has any questions? Have them now, or I'll seek a motion for approval.
Ludwig will move consent.
Moore will second.
A motion by Ludwig, second by Moore to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Collin,
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
3, Commissioner Steffi.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, brings us to our regular agenda. Public hearing for the 2021 update. So we'll have a presentation from staff on the fee schedule changes. Then we'll have a chance for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Kelly Schroeder, County Auditor Treasurer. Before you today, you've got a handful, I think there's 10 fees that we are suggesting changing. We've gotten in the practice of annually, just in November, reviewing the countywide to just ensure that the fees for 2021 are what they need to be. After that review, we had 2 departments that came up with proposed changes, which you have in front of you today. The first one was the jail, which Rod is on, so if you have questions more about this, I'm sure he can answer. But in the jail, they actually got new fingerprinting equipment, which is digital equipment. They used to use like the old ink pad still. And so with that new technology, it makes sense to actually increase the cost due to that cost, that new equipment. So it was $10, we're going to $20, but the nice thing about that is, for us to make additional copies, it really doesn't, it's not that hard, that much more work. So previously, if someone needed additional copies, they had to pay another $10. There, with this new system, we're suggesting to have additional copies to just be $1 each. So in the end, yes, it's an increase from $10 to $20, but now if you need additional copies, it will only be $1 versus $10. I don't know if Rod, you have anything more to add to that, or if you guys followed that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Or are we at the question for the board?
Well, let's do them, the jail and then solid waste. Huh?
Yep. Okay. So I'm assuming this is for somebody that needs a fingerprint for a job application or something. Is that right? Or is that for inmates? We need to buy you a new microphone, I think, Rod. Pretty broken up. You're loud enough, but it sounds like you're in a submarine. Okay. I think I got the gist of what you were saying. Thank you.
Okay, and then the other fees that we're suggesting to change is just in the solid waste department. So now we have about 1.5 years under our belt of running those transfer stations, the South Pine and the North Pine. And so we've learned a lot in that year of what it costs us to dispose of things. And so we have, and how much of those things come in. And so we've got just a handful of items that we're suggesting to have slight increases for, the chair and couch disposals. Those are big, bulky items. They take up a lot of space in a dumpster. Electronics, that's just, what it's costing us to get rid of them. And then mattresses, again, to better align with the cost that it is for us to get rid of them. And then same with the tires. The tires is kind of interesting. We weren't going to put that on the table, except for the Hinckley transfer station went to these prices. So it made sense for us to follow with what that's doing rather than us staying at less than what the Hinckley transfer station is doing. Any questions on those solid waste fees?
Where would a TV fall in there, Kelly? Under the just miscellaneous electronics?
Nope, so there's a whole huge fee schedule outside of what is shown here. These are just the fees that we're asking to change. And so like the TV, we're just wanting to leave that at the same at what it was, and I can pull that up really quick, what it was at.
Kelly, it was $10 for a regular TV, $20 for a larger TV.
Super, thanks, Caleb.
It's getting to the point where it almost costs as much to get rid of a TV as it does to buy one.
Any other questions on the proposed fee changes?
Okay. Thank you. Does the board have any questions at all about the fee schedules? It appears to me what we're doing is just trying to cover our cost. And we don't really make any money on this, but we do want to cover our costs. So we'll open, I hear no questions from the board. We'll open it up to any public that happens to be someplace, which I don't see a lot of. But
I do have this is Eileen.
Yeah. Yes.
I do have a comment. I'm not sure that raising the price of disposing of things like mattresses and TVs and what have you are going to increase any cleanup in our county, because we're going to start seeing more and more of these in the ditches, the more expensive it is for them to dispose of. So every time you raise a cost, you probably increase what's going in the ditches tenfold, because people don't, like you said, Steve, it's almost cost as much to dispose of them as it does to go buy one. So, we don't want to see more in the ditches. Thank you.
No, and it's a tightrope we walk, Elaine, because the cost of getting rid of that stuff goes up, and I know the mattress thing it's a big factor. Tires are a big factor. There's only so many people that take that stuff, and it is cheaper to get rid of it to a recycler than it is to put it in a landfill. And we're just covering our cost. So at some point, then you have to start subsidizing, which we kind of do already, but you can only afford to subsidize so much. But I hear you, and believe me, I think about that all the time when we talk about raising a fee on stuff, because I see it in our ditch, and I scratch my head and say, oh, how can we educate people that this is not the proper way to get rid of stuff? Any other public comments? If not, we will close the public hearing. And the board, do you got any other comments from the board?
Commissioner Moore, I got something. Just real quick on tires, can commercial businesses take tires from these places too, or not? Is it just residential?
This is residential only.
Okay. So, because I know like businesses, they usually have like a truck come in and get them or whatever, but okay. So if they show up and say, this is my personal stash, is that something you guys check into, or is it just something that if they come with a truckload, they can't bring them?
It's it's one of those fine lines, Josh. Obviously we know some of the folks that do it commercially. So should they show up, we would really question them. But we also know that there's some people who just inherited their grandparents' farm and are doing a major cleanup. So they might be coming with a giant trailer full. So it's really a fine line, and it's discretion of our attendants act, what it comes down to.
Is
really,
that something you would be interested in doing, or is there a reason why we don't offer it, or what? Or you just don't want the volume?
I think it's a mixed bag of those things. So the first thing is these prices that you're seeing are subsidized prices already. And so, I mean, do we want to subsidize businesses? And so that's one part of it. And then the other part of it, is a space issue. I mean, some of those commercial folks could fill up one of our containers in one shot. And then what happens when the homeowners come? But
Yeah,
I mean, if there's commercial folks out there
Josh,
that.
if we have some businesses that need to get rid of 200 tires, we would work with the people that end up getting our tires and send them directly to the business.
Yep.
That makes more sense then we don't have to handle them twice. The business doesn't have to handle them, and they can throw them or stack them right in the truck. I believe they would get the same pricing, whether or not is it First State that's coming to pick ours up now, Kelly?
Let's let Caleb answer that.
Okay.
Tire Aggregate LLC.
Tire Aggregate.
Okay.
To get ours now, and they work in East Central. It's one of the counties they work in. So.
And that was that was my just wondering is if because these businesses are paying a solid waste fee, I would assume.
Right.
But if it's most of the guys I know don't want to deal with them anyways. They just want the truck to show up. They throw them in the back of the truck and they leave. So I don't know if they would even partake in it or not, but and or what the price is. That's what I was going to kind of check on is what the price what they're paying to have guys show up and pick them up too. If it's the same, why would they care? Or even if it was a little more, why would they care? They don't have to haul them. But I was just curious.
There's probably a small convenience fee for them having a truck show up at their business, but tires cost money to get rid of. There's not a real good market for used, for recycled rubber. They've tried a lot of different things, but there's a lot of counties that have an ordinance that does not allow ground up tires to be covered up in any way, shape, or form. Kanabec County being one of them. And so if somebody wants to use them for fill in a driveway or whatever, it's not allowed there. So any other questions? If not, we will consider the adoption of the fee schedule update. That would mean we were looking for a motion from somebody with a second.
Becker, I'll make that motion to adopt the proposed fee schedule.
Morrill second.
Motion by Mickret, second by Moore to adopt the fee schedule changes for 2021. Any more discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Todd, Commissioner Ludwig,
Aye.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore,
Yes.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee,
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
Okay, we'll move on to the Personnel Committee report.
Want me to take that, Steve?
Yeah, go ahead, Matt. I don't have a agenda in front of me, so I wouldn't be able to anyway. So go for it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, Personnel Committee met November 10th, 2020. And we made the following recommendations. In Health and Human Services Department, we acknowledge the resignation of Child Protection Service social worker Samantha Ziegler, effective September 29th, 2020, and request backfill of the position and subsequent vacancies that may occur due to internal promotion or lateral transfer. And we also approved the hiring of social worker Brittany Hoagland, effective November 23rd, 2020. In the sheriff's office, we approved the promotion of part-time deputy status Blake Reichert, effective October 12th, 2020, to full-time, from part-time to full-time. At Land Services Department, we approved the hiring of a part-time recycling attendant, non-union, grade 1, step 1, auditor treasurer. We acknowledge the retirement of Chief Deputy Auditor Terry Lovegren, effective January 3rd, 2021. And we add the additional election duties to the current property records specialist position and rename the position property records election specialist. And approve the updated job description and regrade from grade 5 to grade 7 with a new minimum hourly starting at $20.74. Adjust the incumbent's pay to align with the new grade and changes to be effective January 4th, 2021. We approve hiring a new clerk 3 position to backfill the duties from property records specialist along with other departmental duties. The grade clerk is a grade 4 with a minimum starting wage of $17.41 per hour. Just a note there was savings in that whole process. In administration, consider the amendment to section 7 of the personnel policy to allow the cash out of up to 80 hours, 2 weeks of PTO per year. This change will align with county policy recently negotiated in the CBA language. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will move those recommendations.
Commissioner Chafee, second.
Got a motion by Ludwig, seconded by Chafee to accept the Personnel Committee report with the changes so mentioned. Any discussion? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Mickren.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
You.
Okay, we'll move on to Health and Human Services Advisory Committee report. I can do that, Steve, if you want me to.
Yeah, I don't
okay.
have the thing in front of me.
Yep.
Go ahead.
The Minnesota Merit System were the last, and we had a discussion with the public health staff and public health COVID-19 update. It's always interesting. We're in the midst of a real issue, I believe, in Pine County right now. If you would have asked me in June how many people I knew who were homesick with COVID, I'd really had to scratch my head. I could list you a pretty long list of people that I know right now. So things have changed dramatically. Just for Pine County. Anyway, budget update. Becky reviewed the budget year to date. She's done a fantastic job of managing that budget. There are so many unknowns in this world, and especially in the world of HHS. And we commend you, Becky, for being able to track that for us. And we know there's some things that are absolutely out of our control. And we've always said we will not risk the life of a child in child protection cases because it saves a nickel. So we continue with that. Telework courthouse space planning update. Well, it looks like things are moving along really well on that. front, and I think we'll be. When would you say, Becky? Spring, kind of. Everybody will be in where they need to be.
I think it could potentially be as early as spring. I think it depends on when the renovation gets done, but we'll
Right.
be ready.
Okay. It'll sometime in the next 12 months. Let's say that. Okay. Legislative updates. We of course all kind of hold our breath and in wonderment what might happen, but we can't dwell on what if, and we just have to be prepared if they prorate some of our program costs. So we're pretty resilient. Have every confidence our mission will continue on, and we'll figure it out somehow, some way. We'll move to the Minnesota Merit System. Is the system that we've used to hire people in HHS for, I don't know, Becky, umpteen years. Goes way back. It goes way back when to the point where hardly any counties had HR departments. So the state put together this program called the Merit System. And so because we're working with state and federal programs so much, they put some criteria on people that needed to be hired to fill those positions as agents of the state. In recent years, more and more counties are opting out of that because it does slow the process down. That process doesn't allow for good people, good candidates that we flesh out. And I would point to one, and that would be our public health director, Sam, would not have met the criteria in the merit system, but we interviewed her, we knew her background, and we're very fortunate to hire her. And so that's not the only reason why we've decided that the best move for us is to do our own hiring. We have the capacity now. We have people like Jackie and Jen, and we've got a pretty robust HR department that can handle the hiring and onboarding of new employees. So I believe the time has come where we would say we're going to opt out of the Minnesota Merit System. Was it $37,000 a year that we have to pay them?
Close. It's about 23,000 for 2021. And then that will continue to increase as more counties leave the system.
Right. So anyway, is it all gravy money? No, because it is some burden back on ourselves to make. We still have to ensure these people are not just somebody's sister-in-law, and that's why we're going to hire them. We've had a very good reputation of hiring the very best candidates that are available, and so I have every confidence that we'll be able to continue that. And one of the processes, you can't just quit and say we're done with you tomorrow. We have to give.
Oops.
Commissioner Hallen and I are going to tag team until we can hear him again, I think. But what I think Commissioner Hallen was about to say was that we have to put in a year's notice, at least a year's notice. And so if we want to opt out, we need to give the merit system written notice before December 31st. And so the time is ticking. And so we just need to make a decision on that sooner versus later in order to opt out of it the way that it's designed for counties to opt out of it.
Thank you, Becky.
We're going to move on that today.
Yes, I would like to, and unless somebody has a reason not to, I think the recommendation from the committee. It's something that we just didn't think of 2 weeks ago. We've actually talked about this for a number of years. I've been on that HHS committee and worked with a couple of different directors and scratched our heads saying, why? But we knew why for a while was it would have stretched our capacity. I think now we've got all the right players in place and we can make this happen. So I would love to make the motion, but I think as chair, I will wait for somebody else to make a motion that we give notice to the state that we will be pulling out of the merit system. And this is our 1 year notice.
Moore will make that motion.
Thank you.
Quick, we'll second that motion.
All right. Is there any discussion, any questions on that?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair. I completely support this for our own recruitment. I was involved in a couple of those meetings too, and I just think this is a great move. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. No other discussion. The clerk will call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Allen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody that worked on this so diligently. I'm looking at my screen here as I go, David and Becky and Jackie and Sam and I'm not sure who else, but I know it was not one individual. It was a pretty much of a team effort that put this together. So we will move on to a COVID-19 update for public health.
Oh, Mr. Chair? I
Yes.
think we're at Joe Newton and Essentia annual report.
We are.
Number 4.
Oh, you know what? I'm reading the wrong agenda. I've still had the public health. I'm sorry, but Sam, I didn't mean to alert you. I was still on. Yes. Thank you. Health, Essentia Health, annual report with Joe. I heard you before, so.
So hopefully you can hear me again.
Yeah.
Sam would have been ready to go. So she's always set.
All right.
All right. I'm going to share my screen here just to go through the PowerPoint. Also, just for awareness, I did invite Mitch Johnson, who is our new EMS manager for our EMS system within Essentia. He is in attendance today, and eventually he'll probably be taking over some of these reports. So, all right. Can everybody see my screen then?
Yes, we can.
All right. So this is for our fiscal year 2020. So I always start out with an overview. Our EMS operations is now a department of our new EMS company within Essentia, which is new for this year. Our Sandstone operations responded to a little bit over 3,500 requests for service, which was about a 2.5% increase. And remember, this is for our fiscal year, so from January 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2016 or 2020. So far for this fiscal year, since July 1st through the end of October, we've had 12 116 responses. So a little bit of a decrease over our previous fiscal year, but that was to be expected at that time with COVID, which we've definitely bounced back in the operations. Still operate the 3 base locations in Sandstone, Hinckley, and Pine City. And just for awareness, what our Sandstone operations cover are portions of 3 different counties: the casino, the county jail, FCI, part of the tribal reservation, portions of the forests, and about 40 miles of I-35, which in the winter, as we're going, can be a little bit detrimental and tax our resources as people try to drive. And that's just an outline again of our area that our Sandstone operations is required to respond within. And then the other majority part of Pine County, which is the northern part up Willow River, Sturgeon Lake area, is covered by our Moose Lake operations now. So what we did per our previous meeting is on July 1st, we transitioned all of our EMS operations into one company. So now we have 6 different ambulance services within Essentia Health EMS, 2 EMSRV licensed educational programs. We have about a total of about 130 clinicians within our system. We do have a community paramedic program in a couple locations. And all in all, we responded a little bit, right around 11,000 requests and transport about 9,000 patients annually. Our Sandstone operations physically is one of our biggest operations, covering 1,336 square miles. Our next largest would be our Deer River operations, which is 894 square miles. So definitely a lot of land area covered by our operations over in Pine County. So over the last year, I couldn't get a newer picture of our ambulance base. Again, that was about a $1.1 million investment between the North Pine Area Hospital District and Essentia Health to build the ambulance location up there, which the crews are very grateful for. Having our ambulances together with our crews is a huge benefit in decreasing our response times. One of the newest projects that we're working on is a telehealth or telestroke project. This kind of got delayed with COVID, but that's a picture of the back of one of our Deer River ambulances, where we have a computer mounted within the ambulance itself, a screen where they'll be able to see the neurologist, and then a camera and speakers so that they're able to hear and interact with that stroke neurologist. So the whole idea behind this project is to decrease the time to intervention by getting that evaluation done prior to arriving at the local emergency department versus happening after arrival at the emergency department. Still working on it. Like we said, it kind of got delayed along with many things I'm sure you guys are aware as with COVID. So still moving forward with it, just at a lot slower pace than what we had originally hoped for. Along with that, same type of thing is a pre-hospital sepsis care. So one of the largest issues that we have is people getting septic or a systematic infection and causing their rapid decline and eventual death. So the quicker that we can recognize that the patient has an infection and is possibly septic, the better the chances of that person recovering is. So what we're going to be doing is developing criteria for our ambulance service to actually initiate a sepsis alert at our local ED. And then what that does is, it's been proven with our previous alerts that come from EMS to the local EDs with STEMIs or heart attacks, with strokes, is that it ends up decreasing time of care for that patient. So that's what we're looking at also with the sepsis as we move forward with that. We had a successful grant program last year with transitioning some of our EMTs to paramedics, where we paid for their schooling, and in return, they dedicate 3 years to Essentia EMS. So we invested about $30,000 last year into 3 of our EMTs. It's about $10,000 for training. 2 of the recipients of those scholarships are now active paramedics within our Sandstone operations. And we still have 1 that is still attending training. It's about a 1.5 to 2 year program. So I would consider it very successful. Home growing some of our staff and allowing them to increase and taking away that barrier of finances, I think was a huge benefit to us and to the county and to our patients. We've added in new safes into our ambulances that are tracked electronically to safeguard the narcotics within the ambulance itself, and also to monitor usage. We've implemented RFID tagging to all of our narcotics so that we can basically, this system allows us to track from when we purchase a narcotic until we waste that narcotic or utilize that narcotic, and have the whole life cycle of that medication. So it gets us in compliance with DEA regulations, and also is just better for our patients and better for our staff and tracking. As with COVID, we've invested in what we purchased down in Sandstone, our Victory guns. They're electrostatic sprayers. So in that little white tank there, we mix up a disinfectant that is able to kill COVID along with many other items. And we can then spray the back of the ambulance. And with the electrostatic spray, it's able to wrap around objects and get all sides of that object as far as decontaminating it and making it safe for the next patient and safe for our crews. As part of our COVID response, we've also increased social distancing and masking requirements for our crews. We've increased our PPE. We have one of the most, from what I'm finding out, we have a very stringent PPE standard with our EMS system, which has helped immensely at decreasing the spread of COVID within our EMS system. Out of the 130 clinicians system-wide, we currently have 7 out on quarantine, which is about 5 to 6%, when many other ambulance services have upwards of 20 to 25% of their staff out on quarantine. So I think the processes that we're going through is beneficial to our staff, which obviously allows us to be able to continue responding in the fashion that everyone's come accustomed to. We've also offered to our Pine County deputies that they can stop by any of our bases as desired, and we'll utilize these sprayer guns. Our crews will utilize the sprayers to decontaminate and spray out their squad cars if desired to. With COVID, we have an increasing demand now. When we started the pandemic, there was a large decrease in response requests or requests for service as people were staying at home. But now that they're going back out, if you can look at the right side of the graph, the top line is 911 responses. This is put out by the state for COVID-related responses, and the orange line is for interfacility or hospital-to-hospital transports. So as you can see, we had the first initial wave back on week 18, 19, and 20 of this year, and now we're surpassing that in responses and transfers. With that, because of that dramatic spike, and everybody's heard about the hospitals being full and such, we are assisting in utilizing all of our EMS operations in decompressing some of our hospitals. especially in the east area over on this side is the up in our Duluth hospital, and bringing patients that are lower acuity or that don't need that specialized care out to some of our other hospitals to be cared for, and allowing up and trying to free up some ICU beds at our main facility up in Duluth. All while our goal is to maintain our 911 coverage within the county while we're still assisting on transfers in various areas. And with that, we're monitoring staffing levels, monitoring response levels, and making adjustments on a daily basis as needed. So as you can imagine, part of our community involvement was most of it took place pre-COVID. We did attend some parades at the beginning of last year, in the fall of last year. We did some UMD football coverage and got Sandstone up at UMD. But obviously this spring, summer, and fall, we haven't been able to really do many community events due to the pandemic that's happening. Still working with our first responders, and our goal going back to fall of 2019, we trained 23 EMRs in their initial course. Most recently, we did a refresher for the Pine County Sheriff's Office in September of this year, all while masking and socially distancing and trying to take advantage of any remote training possibilities that we have. And we're just finishing up the EMR initial course that'll be finishing a little bit later in November here. So still trying to keep that interaction with the first responders and making sure their training is current. Financially wise, I put in the last 3 fiscal years. As you can see, state of healthcare, with our decreased volumes a little bit, we had a slight decrease in net patient revenue, mainly due to an increase in contractual allowances that we had. I don't know how to get rid of this. So our contractuals went up slightly as they have been in the past, and that's again the money that we aren't able to collect due to contracts with insurance companies, Medicare and Medicaid. A little bit of increase in bad debt, which can be expected as people lose their jobs, don't have the ability to pay. And then while trying to control our expenses, salaries and wages and benefits, so we're at about $1.8 million that we spend on staff, and then the rest of it as we go. So we had a little bit of a loss of about $400,000 when we add in indirect expenses for this past year. Everybody's favorite part, the stats. Currently, 1 full-time paramedic supervisor, Adam Gray, that is stationed in our Sandstone operations. We have 12 paramedics on our roster now, which is the most we've had in a long time. Most of them are full-time as compared to previously. We had a higher percentage of casual and lower FTE positions, and 16 EMTs. Our FTEs are staying pretty constant, around 28 FTEs to operate the service. We said volumes over the last few years, we've been staying pretty steady in Sandstone, which it's good to see the steadiness, people using the system appropriately. Slight increase from last year, but still a little bit under our FY18 volumes. Our heat map, where most of our calls are, again, orange is the higher concentration of calls. Yellow is a little bit lower concentration, and green is even lower concentration. Pretty well spread out throughout the PSA, and this is our 911 calls for service. As you can see, we do provide some mutual aid on 911 settings to our neighboring ambulance services, as they also provide a little bit of assistance and mutual aid help when we're running low on resources. So give and take both ways. Still, again, most of our calls are in Pine City, and then Hinckley, and then Sandstone area. And again, these are just 911 calls. They're not interfacility transfers, so they're not built into this system. And then Finlayson, Kegamon, and so on drops off after that. Where are most of our patients being transported to on 911 calls? So this is the ones that are actually transported and that are classified in our system as 911s. About 1,000 of them went to Essential Health in Sandstone, 600 to Wellia, 650 over in Mora, and then Fairview Lakes, 106, and then down after that, Cambridge, Moose Lake, Burnett, and so on. Which is about pretty much where we've seen it. A little bit, slightly over 50% have gone to Sandstone. And again, we take the patients where they want to, unless there's a medical condition that would make that decision that they have to go to the closest hospital, or weather conditions. I overlaid our last fiscal year and this fiscal year on when are we receiving calls for service. So as you can see, the red line is our FY20 numbers, responses, and our FY19 is in blue. Pretty consistent between the two years. So it makes staffing nice. We don't have to adjust staffing levels very much based on the time of the day, based on how many calls we get during those hours. Then this one, so what happens with our 911 patients? We go out on a 911 call. How many of those are actually transported? So about 71%. This fiscal year were transported, which is actually down slightly. I believe we were up around 78% the prior fiscal year. But it shows that those are the patients that receive an invoice from us typically. Along with some of the treated and released, but that was only 31 or 1% of patients over the last year. A lot of them will go out, do an assessment, and they're not treated or they're not transported. It's about 17%. Or they're transported by law enforcement or by some other means. So that's where we're at, and I'm ready for your questions once I can figure out how to stop sharing. There we go.
Thank you,
Mr.
Joe.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Commissioner Ludwig, Joe. So when you were doing the retraining or refreshing the first responders, I noticed you did the sheriff's office. Do you reach out to the rural fire departments too? That's one question. And then, are you capturing any dollars from the East Central Regional EMS for part of that training to some of those rural departments?
We provide training to any of the first responder groups, and I believe every first responder group in the county has participated or attended some trainings, either the refreshers or the initials over the last 2 years. Because what we originally found out was there's a lot of people responding as part of a first responder group that weren't current on their training. So that's where we wanted to do that. We do it free of charge to those services unless they're able to recoup any funding from the Central Region EMS group, which I believe last year or this year there may be a little bit of funding available. But I know the previous year there wasn't any funding available with Marion at that time.
That's right. But I was wondering, there was some, and I think it ran out. Right? Yeah.
I'm sure it ran out fairly quickly. Yeah.
Yeah. So my question there is, so you do use that. So it helps us when we push for, it's the seatbelt dollars that fund a lot of that, and the compliance, the seatbelt citations and the compliance is the public's doing so well that's falling off. So we're trying to reach out to the legislative to come up with another statute, like the driver inattention or whatever, which causes a lot of crashes and get something there. So any data that I can get and bring back to that committee helps us too. I just want to know what your numbers are reaching out to rural fire departments too for those first responders.
Yeah, I can get how many we've trained over the last couple of years.
Yeah, just anytime, and then I'll call you. I still have your number, I think so. Thank you.
I know. Yep, and I'm president-elect for the Minnesota Ambulance Association, and I know that that's one area that we've looked at also.
Okay, thanks.
Joe, I was very interested in the equipment you had to help with stroke victims. Is that available like at Wellia and at Sandstone and Wyoming, wherever you go, or is it only at your compatible with your facilities?
It would be only compatible with our Essentia stroke neurologists. So the whole idea, so we would contact our stroke neurologist in Duluth to get that, to start that exam while we're transporting.
Okay.
Just because of the HIPAA and security that needs to be in place for the transmission.
Thank you. It's very interesting.
Trying to stay on top of things, definitely.
Yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
There is a question in the chat.
So the question in the chat was, do you ask patient which facility they prefer, or do they have to ask? Our crews are supposed to ask what facility, where they want to be transported to. We have guidelines. Obviously, we're not going to we typically won't transport somebody from up in the Nemadji down to Wyoming, let's say. They have to go within, our guidelines say within 30 minutes approximately for that transport time. So our crews are very familiar with a lot of our patients. I mean, if they doctor within the Wellia system, it makes sense that they go over to Wellia for that ED care also.
Thank you. No other questions. It's clock time here at the Holland House. But we will move on to jail camera system request. Something that's been on our radar for a long time.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members of the board, can you hear me okay?
Yes, now it's good, right?
All right, well, they had me switch over to something different. So, like you said, the jail camera project been going since 2017. We're on our final phase. We reached out to 3 different groups for bids to rewire the jail with the Cat6 cabling and installing the actual cameras now that we got the whole infrastructure in. There is a correction on the bid that came in. Life Safety Systems, instead of the $231,865 listed, it's $237,125. And the reason for that change was in talking with IT, they thought it would be better to have Life Safety Systems put in some needed switches so that we had them install them instead of us install them, and maybe some confusion in there. That way this Life Safety Systems would put in what's needed, let's say. So the entire amount includes all the cameras and software and equipment to run the camera systems. Like I said, we looked at 3 different avenues. We looked at Accurate Control, we looked at Midwest Safety, and then this Life Safety Systems. In conferring with IT group, we decided Life Safety Systems was more beneficial to the jail and the county for the needs that we were looking for and the services that we needed. They're also the same company that installed for the new building in Sandstone. They're local, so if we should need services, we're looking at some cost savings there for future if there's needs for services and that. And then the last thing would be the software that goes along with it is more beneficial to the jail needs, easier to track inmates, search areas. It was just much more user friendly. Accurate Control, we'd stay with an older system, and then Midwest Alarms, they basically had the same old system too, which was I know you may not know, but when we have to put things together in videos for county attorneys and different things that we pull video for, it's really cumbersome, and now this enhanced system would be much more beneficial. So we're requesting to finish up this jail camera project with the bid coming in at $237,125. And do you have any questions or anything? I know we also sat through the tech committee, and I think Commissioner Matt Ludwig was involved with that. I'm not sure who else was in there, but we've been bringing this up quite a bit. So, any questions?
I've been there all the time, Rod. So,
Steve, okay.
Yep. Anyway, I think we've set the money aside. We've gone through everything we can go through, and I think this is what we need to do to get the ball rolling on it. So we need a motion for that.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think we still have a slight discrepancy on the dollar amount. I believe the actual dollar amount is $237,925 rather than $125. Rod, does that sound?
Yeah, I can look at that. We've found a little savings, and the final would be $237,125. There was a camera they put in, and they forgot to take it out that we didn't need. We actually went through every camera position. We are eliminating a few cameras because of the new technology. We can cover more area with less cameras, and they left one in. So the final, as I know it, should be $237,125.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for the clarity.
Okay, thank you. So we are looking for a motion. Go ahead.
Commissioner Ludwig will move that.
Thank you, Matt.
McRodd, second.
Thanks, John. Got a motion by Ludwig, second by Mickrut to go ahead with the $237,125 jail camera system request. Is there any discussion, any questions? I hear none, so we'll have the clerk call the roll.
Chair Holland, I do have a question. Does that include the approval of the professional services contract as well, or is that going to be a separate motion?
Yeah, it should approve the contract and the professional services agreement to implement the contract.
Roll call, we'll start with District 3, Commissioner Shavy. Commissioner Shavy?
All I heard was music.
We'll try him again in a bit. District 4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Shavy, can you hear me?
Aye.
No.
Thank you.
Aye. You hear me?
Yep, we heard you. Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to the Pine City Compost Site Purchase Agreement. Another thing that we've worked on for some time. And we've been operating there for a while and under a lease agreement. Kind of, I think it could have happened when we could have just traded the building for the compost site, but it came in two separate things. So anyway, does anybody, Caleb or Kelly, does anybody want to say anything about this, or should we?
I can help out a little bit there. So, yeah, it was about a year ago that we started operating the South Pine Transfer Station at the compost site that the city owns. So it's kind of two programs being ran by public entities on the same property, and there was we looked extensively at different properties to see if we could find kind of this separate place for this service, the recycling and garbage service that we provide. And over that time period, nothing else really presented itself. This site that we're currently at just seemed to make a lot of sense. And as we kind of worked through a more permanent solution to staying there, it really was identifying itself that it most efficiently could most efficiently be handled where one entity was operating both compost as well as the recycling program. So it kind of made sense that these things kind of be married, and the county would be a more suitable provider of those services. Part of that is that with the lakes on both sides of Pine City, there's just a lot of more non-city residents that use the site. It's kind of a regional demand, and therefore makes a little more sense for the county. And then some efficiencies with staffing down there, equipment operation. There are times where we do need some equipment operation or could benefit from it for the recycling program. So to be able to use those in tandem could make a lot of sense. So we have a purchase agreement which was previously approved by the city council that for a grand total of $1 for these two parcels. And that's all I have. Any questions for me?
No, we will look for a motion for the purchase.
Mr. Chair, I did have a real quick question.
Yep.
So now the county is going to operate the composting site, and it's going to be open to more than just city community members then?
Yes, which has always been an issue, as you know. Somebody lives in Cross Lake, just north of the city limits, and they got a bunch of branches they want to get rid of, and then they
Yeah,
get in a
most of my
hassle.
district is that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but the other question is now, is the city just out of the business then, and it's just us? Or are they contributing anything, or is it? I mean, like I said,
No.
I see. I'm just asking the question. I was just wondering if they had anything to do with it.
They are county residents, so they would be able to partake just like you or I would.
Okay. And the city's out of, the costs and everything like that now, right? They're not going to contribute
Yes.
anything. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I would make the motion to go ahead and approve it.
Thank you. Looking for a second.
Ludwig will second.
Got a motion and a second by Moore and Ludwig for the purchase of the compost site just west of Pine City. Any more discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Or no. I've been sitting here too long. Debbie will call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner McGritt.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, Lower St. Croix Watershed Plan Adoption and Joint Powers Agreement. This is another one that has, is about a year and a half in the making or more. We've seen several reiterations of it. This is what finally came back out of the planning and all those groups that meet. Caleb, I want to thank you for hanging in there and getting this done. We have a very diverse group in the Lower St. Croix and of watershed districts, county boards, soil and water districts. And so it was, everybody had a little bit different idea of how things could run. County boards are used to having joint powers agreements. Watershed districts and soil and waters are a little more hesitant, especially watershed districts. It's a whole new ball game for them. So this is what we ended up with so we can move forward. And I think it'll serve us well. And as time goes on, there might be some modifications to the way the organization ends up being managed, but it's for now, it'll work. And they have projects on the table. They want to move forward and start working on those projects. So we're looking for approval. First of all, does anybody have questions on this whole process? What we're doing here? Caleb has been on the advisory committee throughout the whole process, and I've been on the planning, I believe they call it the planning committee. That's going to go away now, and then we'll have basically an operating board, which I will be a part of. So we need a motion and a second for resolution 2020-76.
Moore will make that motion.
Chafee, second.
Thank you. We got a motion by Moore, second by Chafee to sign the agreement of the watershed plan adoption and the joint powers agreement. Are there any questions or discussion? If not, Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Shafey.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner McGritt.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. We'll move on to labor negotiation update.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we have, if the collective bargaining agreement presented today gets approved, we have then 3 settled contracts, 2 that are at the tentative agreement stage where we are finalizing the language, 2 that we are actively negotiating with, and then 2 awaiting negotiation. And then we have the 1 contract that has been settled and is in year 2 next year. So that's kind of an overall update. I think we have made pretty good progress. The labor agreement for your consideration today is with the Pine County Sheriff's Office administrative support staff. And we have settled all of the terms in line with how we have done the other 2 contracts we've settled already. There is one change that did not make it into the language that went into your packet. And so it has to do with the cash out of PTO, where earlier in the meeting, you amended the personnel policy with language that is similar to what we've agreed to. We neglected to get that update into this contract. And so we would propose amending the section D, Article 9 on page 6 to allow this group to cash out up to 80 hours or 2 weeks per year, just like we have the other ones. So I just wanted to get your concurrence on that before you approve the contract.
Thank you, David. Has anybody got any other thing to add?
So you're just looking for a motion to approve then, right?
Right, and the only change to what's in front of you is that section D would allow 80 hours or 2 weeks per year. They could do it up to twice per year, and it has to be done by December 1st to be effective in the current year. So that's the standard language we have elsewhere.
Okay, well, Commissioner Moore will make that motion with them changes.
Ludwig will second.
Got a motion by Moore, second by Ludwig, to sign the bargaining agreement for the Sheriff's Administrative Support Unit. Any questions? All right, if not, clerk will call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
3, Commissioner Chafee.
Aye.
4, Commissioner McRae.
Aye.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
All right. And thank you, negotiating committee. Those are long meetings, tough meetings, I know. Thank you. We'll move on to Corona's response update, public health update. Sam, now. Your turn.
Sorry, I'm double muted. There we go. Hello, everyone. So I normally go through a long rundown of numbers and everything, and I thought I would not do that today because eventually the numbers just kind of all blur together and there's no context to them anymore, and everybody goes, I don't know what that means. So I just kind of wanted to give just a couple basic messages about what's happening and things to know. So our high schools started distance learning across the board yesterday, if they weren't already. Two school districts were already in distance learning, so they just stayed there. And then this week is the last week, this week and then a couple days next week are the last days for elementary to be in hybrid, and they will be moving to distance learning as well. Basically, this week is time for the teachers to press and get ready for distance learning once Thanksgiving comes, after we're back from Thanksgiving. All distance learning. Pine County will be over 1,000 cases as of tomorrow. So our numbers have just grown exponentially like everywhere else in the state. But the thing that's just really concerning that I want people to understand is that even if they don't think COVID is a big deal, people with COVID do end up in the hospital. And it's just the sheer numbers of people testing positive are going to overwhelm our hospital. If you just look at Friday through Sunday, we have over 24,000 cases across the state. On average, about 8% of people who have COVID end up in the hospital for something related to COVID. So that's, oh, I lost my number. I had it. 24,000 times. That's almost 2,000 people. We do not have 2,000 beds for them available. And so even if you think, oh, we have every single bed for a COVID patient, we don't have any beds for the random people who are in a car accident, who have a heart attack, who all the normal times you would end up in a hospital bed pre-COVID. So it's really, really concerning how many people have it right now at once. The stableness was how we got through the whole summer into the early fall. We could handle it because it was a steady trickle across hospital systems, providers, public health. 8,000 cases a day is, our system isn't built for that. So it's very concerning, and like there are not enough beds. So we will see this spike. We're already seeing the spike in hospitalizations. We had the most today of any, and there's generally a lag of 1 to 2 weeks. So 1 to 2 weeks from now, I'm really nervous of what's going to happen with our hospitals. So that is why yesterday the governor came on. Just last week, there were like 3 households, just 10 people, 3 households for Thanksgiving. It has since changed that quickly for them to say, please do not go anywhere on Thanksgiving. Stay home in your bubble. If you don't live with them, please do not go hang out with them right now. It is that rampant, and it's just ramping up, and it's going to overwhelm systems that we need to continue to function. So it's really concerning. So if anybody has Thanksgiving plans, please, please, please keep them small. You know, get takeout from your local restaurant, because a lot of people do those Thanksgiving meals to support your local restaurant, but do takeout. Keep it just with your little family. It's really concerning that we're going into this and then going through a holiday that people generally gather. So we're really trying to just keep it small, be creative, Zoom your family, make it through this holiday so that you can go hang out with them next year. So I'm sorry that's a downer, but it's a scary time right now in public health. We're all a little stressed and worried because this is not normal. Even in COVID land, this isn't normal. So happy to answer questions.
You, Sam, for the not so cheery news, but it's news we need to be aware of. We need to live with it. Life is different. I can't go to Cabin Coffee anymore and have coffee in the morning. So that's different.
If we can just make it through these next couple months, I think we'll turn a bend, we'll get through it. We'll get you back to Cabin Coffees. We just got to make it through this winter.
Thanks. All right. CARES Act funding update. David, is that yours?
Yes, with Kelly's help, if I get the numbers wrong. But just to review, we received about $3.6 million. We have expended about 2.6 of that, leaving about $1 million at this point. We anticipate that we are going to receive about $140,000 back from the cities and townships. Their deadline for spending has passed, and so they need to roll to the county any unspent funds. So we think we have about $1.1 million left. That's after, just to recap the business and nonprofit program, we did spend about $832,000 in the business and nonprofit program. And that's separate from all of the one-offs that we did for things like Phase and the Fair Board and some of the others, the Historical Society that we handled separately. With that remaining $1.1 million, we are going to recoup as many county staffing costs as we can legitimately claim because that is an eligible expense. And then if we do not get to the $1.1 million, we are thinking that that money would be best offered to the school districts to pay for their eligible costs. And so our goal then is by December 1st, we would have expended all of the funds that we were allocated.
It's been a monumental task, and everybody that worked on that did it as something else, you know. It wasn't in their job description a year ago, that's for sure. So hats off to you folks who crunch those numbers and help line up the people that put together the grant and reviewed the grants and got the money out the door and all of that stuff. So thank you.
And I don't know if everyone saw over the weekend, we were featured in an article in the St. Paul Pioneer Press with the Work Fast program. In talking to AMC, it sounds like they believe that that is one of the more innovative programs that came out of these funds. And coincidentally, this weekend was the first graduation for the first of 3 CNA classes.
Cool.
So there's no action required, just to check in to make sure that that direction sounds good. And then certainly if you have any questions on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
how is it going to work with the schools? You know, we have the schools, you just reach out to the school and they, I don't know what's going to happen.
Back when we had just received the money, some of the school districts did reach out to us. And so at that point, our response was, we're going to focus on the business and nonprofit assistance, and we're going to focus on the county costs. And then if we have funds left over, we would reach back out to the school districts. And so now we're at that point where we will reach back out to the school districts. And my sense from the communication I've had with them is they have a significant amount of costs that are eligible that have not yet been paid by other CARES Act funds.
Yeah, I think, because they have to levy too.
Yes.
Yeah, so-
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. We'll move on to commissioner updates if there's no other questions on that. Nemadji, one watershed, one plan.
No meeting, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Central Minnesota Council on Aging. Everything seems to be on track. The thing that I don't know if it's worrisome or it's amazing to me how many people have been served in the last 6 months that weren't served before. And it's kind of a head scratcher because I don't know if they just found out things were available, but they're needy people that are getting service. So people like Catholic Charities and Lutheran Social Services, who are the contractors for programs like Meals on Wheels, have been very innovative, and I think have written a new book on how it's best to serve elderly people with nutritious meals, and these frozen meals that people can pick up and take home, and their families can help them, show them how to put them in the mic. You know, I mean, most people are capable of doing that if they're still living at home, and so that's been a godsend for some people. Anyway, East Central Solid Waste. We had an on again, off again, on again deer carcass disposal discussion. Anyway, we have vowed that before next season, before bow season even starts, we are going to have the game plan for how we dispose of deer carcasses in East Central Minnesota. As you know, deer hunting is a huge, huge thing in Pine County, both for family tradition and monetarily for people. And I can't imagine what the economic impact of deer season is on Pine County. That's got to be in several $1 million at turnover. So we want to make sure, first of all, we are taking care of CWD the way we are supposed to. And second of all, that people that come here have a great experience. And when they shoot a deer and they get it taken care of by a processor, which we have many in Pine County, that processor can get rid of the carcass. So anyway, we'll get it figured out. East Central Regional Library.
Yeah, we did have a meeting. She just informed us about how everything's rolling along. They're doing a pretty good job. I think all the libraries are fully functionable now, at least open for like curbside delivery and stuff like that. One of the big things they're looking into is self checkouts. So it'll be just pretty much the same as like when you go to Walmart, self checkout type of stuff. So they're going to try to do that through CARES Act funding. They are not cheap, but they're trying to get them, maybe not in every library, but in most libraries. And they will just cut down on the human interaction. So they're a little easier to sanitize. They're a little easier to not, have face-to-face contact with the stuff. So the other thing, and I talked to David a little bit about it, is through the CARES Act funding, we're funding that. But one of the counties, Aiken County, did not fund it, and they said the reason is they spent all their money already. So
Really?
I thought that was a little unique. So David was doing a little investigating on it to see, whatever. But they didn't say it was a bad thing. They just said they had already spent all their money, so they didn't have any left. So, but that's about it.
Thank you. David?
Yes.
Josh raises a question because I've been hearing that a lot of counties didn't jump on this very fast and they have huge amounts of money left over. Is that true, or is people just getting the wrong message?
I think to some extent, there's some wrong messages going out. I know in the AMC meetings that I've been on in the last week, the counties that have at least indicated anything have indicated that they have or will spend all of their money. I think many counties are doing similar to Pine in that if there is funding that is not specifically spent on other projects, that money would go to recoup eligible staff costs. And so in answer to the question, did you spend all your money? If you are looking only at external organizations, you might say no, but still not send money back to the state. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I think as Commissioner Moore was pointing out, there sometimes is a little disconnect between what commissioners say about the status and what the actual status is. Not that they're not correct, but they're sometimes incomplete.
Right.
And if I could maybe just follow up on the library comment, where Pine County did fund the library's request for the automated checkouts and for what they were calling the regional recovery. And that regional recovery piece was predicated on all counties funding it. And so we'll have to follow up with our library to see how they're going to use our money. But we did send it to them with the direction that if the regional recovery wasn't funded, that they should still look to spend the CARES Act money that we provided them on eligible costs in libraries in Pine County. So they may have other plans for that, which we told them we would support.
Okay, thanks. Pine County Chemical Health Coalition.
Yes, I attended that one. It was a very short and brief meeting. Talked about upcoming trainings that are going to be offered. Also talked about our one-on-one conversations we're going to hold with a few different topics this year. We want to get out there and get the public input on. And also they approved 2 new billboards going up. Should see them here in a week or 2, I guess. And that's about it. Nice, short and sweet.
Thanks, John. Canvassing board.
Want me? I'll go.
Yeah, okay. I just want to say, first of all, Kelly put Matt and I through the ringer that day. That was like
Yeah.
a pond death march almost, but we got it done.
That was gonna be my comment, Mr. Chair. It was, I know it's very important, but it took 2.5 times longer than Kelly said it was gonna take us.
I'm sorry, I read as fast as I could.
Yeah. Anyway, it went really well. And I can make a comment to the next committee meeting also, because I didn't make Soil on Water because we were long doing canvassing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I will say one thing, when they talk about voter fraud and all of the things that they say can go wrong, if you've ever been an election judge or if you've ever been on a canvassing board, you just have to scratch your head and say, okay, how could that happen? Because we all know a lot of people that do those sorts of things spread all across the country. And so where on earth are those places that have 100,000 more people vote than live in their town or whatever? I mean, I just don't know how that can happen, but I don't know if we of all the votes in Pine County, now I can't remember, Kelly, 12,000, 15, I can't remember. But anyway, we had a couple of times where somebody said, wait a minute, that was a 113, not a 114. And then when everybody did the math again, it turned out to be right. So I don't know.
Can I give you
That's
the number of people voting? It's incredible.
Yeah.
16,068 people.
Good turnout.
Mr. Chair, I got a question.
Yeah.
I know I looked at these numbers. What is that percentage of registered voters?
Let me do the math really quick.
Was it over 100% or?
No.
No.
Okay.
It's like 80. There were a couple of townships that got to 90.
Well, and let me ask you that when they talk about more voters than registered voters, but now when you look at the registered voters, now that's that morning, right? So you can register same day. That's how they get more than 100% in some places or not.
Right, and so the numbers that went out with the Friday update, I added in the new voters.
Okay.
So when you look at the registered voters plus the new voters, countywide, we had a turnout of 86.5%.
Okay. Is that higher than prior or?
It's pretty similar to 2016, actually.
Because we have pretty good turnout usually, right?
Right.
We do. Pine County is notorious for having great turnout.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
I think it's awesome when you get close to 90% turnout. That's amazing. So, but I do know, Josh, we get those. I get those questions sometimes. Well, so many more people voted than are registered. Well, a registered voter, if you're in a place where you can register same day, it's very easy to have that number change.
And I just shared the numbers that Kelly just shared. And for some reason on what got sent out, that bottom line got cut off, so you didn't actually see it. But anyways, if you look at the percentage by jurisdiction, there were many, above 80% and above 90%, which is remarkable.
Yes. Thank you. AMC Policy Committee. I was at a couple of them yesterday. I went to Transportation and then I went to Health and Human Services. They were remote meetings, and thankfully Matt reminded me of the Health and Human Services one, or I would have forgot. But anyway, very informative. As you know, this is the time of year when we pass on our platform that AMC will, it starts way back in before our district meetings and goes through district meetings and so this is what our lobbyists go by as this is what they need to really work on to get us funding for or keep funding or whatever. So anyway, I don't have the final list in front of me for transportation, but we'll get that distributed of what we're going for. Matt, and you were at, what one were you at, Matt?
Public safety, Mr. Chair.
Okay, yep.
And yeah, we moved 4 amendments to the platform. Law enforcement was primary on one, public safety. Another change was, or one that didn't get put up was a bail change. And I think one that interested me a lot was the initiative, the AMC supports an initiative. I get to put my glasses on a data-based evaluation of public safety policy recommendations that increase the return on investment in the public sector, which, we're hearing about the police and sheriff office being scrutinized, but it's a strong that we use data and not emotions to do those things. But we moved forward. It was a real robust meeting as usual with the AMC group, and it's a lot of fun, I think.
Yep. We'll move Lakes and Pines. Went to that meeting Monday. They're gearing up, for their cold weather stuff that they do, heating assistance and such, which is always a conundrum for people at this time of year. So anyway, they have figured out how to work around and through the COVID thing, because they do a lot of stuff one-on-one with people. So they've done much like Health and Human Service and Public Health. They've learned how to deal with people on the phone and behind barriers and masks, and I think they've gotten pretty good at it. Any other business that needs to come before us? If not, look at your meetings. We've got several of them scheduled.
This is Eileen. Could I just mention one thing about the elections?
Pardon me?
Could I just mention one thing about the elections? Actually, it's several things here, but they're concerns for the townships. And I'm an election judge, head election judge at Sandstone. And I just want to say that we saw at least five suspicious. But here's the thing: we don't have the discretion to turn a voter away. We had one voter who voted twice. We had 2 voters who never spoke but were vouched for, and very questionable where they were. But we can't turn them away because they're allowed to vouch for these people. We had one man that came from Monticello and wanted to vote. Luckily, we, through the right questioning, even though we were terribly busy, we were able to discern this man didn't belong there and he couldn't vote, though he was going to register and he was going to vote because he had land there. So, and then we had a man who brought an ID in. He didn't look a bit like the ID, not a bit. And we still do not have the ability to turn that man away. So there are issues there, and it's going to be 2 years before we have new training. So I think these things that come up needs to be, and I'm not saying that our county hasn't done a good job. I mean, when I went in to go pick up my box of voter ballots and what have you, the machine was down that gave you a list of who were actual residents of your township. And and then not only did we not have it, the county didn't have it when they took in absentee ballots. And also the maps that we have, they don't say the address. So when somebody says they're on a line between 2 townships or they're whatever, they give us an address. you know, it can be a real scramble to try to figure out if they actually live there. Those maps are from 2006. So just those particular things, if there would be a way where you guys could address them or actually contact the state to give more discretion to the voters or to the election judge about who is an eligible voter. I mean, if they bring an ID but can state this, the one man that brought the ID, that he was not that man. He was 20 years younger and didn't look, you know, it might have been a relative. Maybe it was his dad. I don't know. But those are the issues that we have. So just if we could do something, even bring some kind of information to the state where they don't change these rules at the last minute, and you know, we have more discretion to turn away a voter who is not a voter for that district or for that precinct. Thank you.
I have made some notes.
Steve, you're muted.
Wonder nobody was listening. But I think you do that remotely to me. Anyway, thank you, Elaine. That's good information to know. We'll pass that on to the Secretary of State's office. We do have a meeting with the Secretary of State. We've had one every year for the last 2 or 3 years, so we will remember those items. Anyway, make sure you attend the meetings that you are assigned to, and we'll see you in December for the first December meeting. No other business before the board. We will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
See you guys. Thanks.